right, Ben Ogden. Thank you so much for being here, dude. I am super excited to get to chat with you because when I was watching you compete at the Olympics here, I was thinking to myself, like, I grew up doing a little bit of cross country skiing, a little bit of downhill skiing, but nobody like ever told me, like cross country skiing, you can be an Olympian, you can be an Olympic athlete. So I'm super interested, like, how did you get into this? Like, has this always just been something in your life, or was this something you discovered along the way?
Yeah, great question. I think for me, like it's always been a part of my life. My dad cross country skied when he was young and in college, and I grew up in a part of the world where Southern Vermont or all of Vermont, but I happened to grow up in Southern Vermont where cross country skiing is a big part of the culture
Mhm.
there. I think that yeah, and I think that that's kind of how it goes for a lot of skiers, is where it's kind of, you know, the people who ski race sort of keep it in their lives for their entire lives and sort of help to create like youth clubs and maybe high school ski teams and stuff like that and kind of try and grow the sport that way. But it ends up being these like little pockets around the country where there are a lot of skiers, and I happen to grow up in one of those pockets, so that's how I got into it.
Awesome. Is it so what is like the normal track for a cross country skier like once you get into it? Is it there's like a club circuit, then high school, then college? Like what is that normal track?
Yeah, there is. And I think the sort of standard pipeline would be, yeah, you do it as a kid in elementary school, maybe as a part of like an after school program. And
Mhm.
there are small little like race scenes for younger kids, but those are pretty mellow. And then if you decide that you're into it, you can join your high school team.
Mhm.
And in all these little like skiing areas around the country, there are pretty robust high school skiing. Uh, Programs. So, you have like high school states, and then if you do well at states, you can go to like New England's, for instance, or like Eastern high school championships is like
Yeah.
what I raced in a bunch. And then if you do well there, or via various other races, you can go to junior nationals. So that's kind of like junior is when you're under 18. So
Mhm.
yeah, junior nationals, and then you go and like wear your New England race suit or your Alaska race suit or whatever, like all the different regions racing against each other. And then as you kind of like advance up through, um, you might qualify for, going to nationals, like senior nationals in the beginning of the year, and then you can qualify for like international races. Like you could go to Europe and race World Junior Championships or World U23 Championships or stuff like
Mhm.
that. And then for me, like I raced those, and then I went to a college program.
Mhm.
So I raced for the University of Vermont, and then it's kind of the same as the other college sport programs where you race against the other colleges. But that's a great way to get support. I mean, as you know, cross country skiing is not the biggest sport
Yeah.
ever, and so it's like can be hard to make ends meet and like get support as you are in that sort of like middle phase.
Yeah.
So yeah, college is a great way to do that, and most all of the American skiers go to college, and then yeah, after college, if you decide you want to, there are various professional teams that you can join if you're fast
Oh.
enough. And yeah, like I'm on a professional team in Vermont, and they support like me racing, in Europe here, and then
Mhm.
there's also like if you qualify, you make the U.S. national team. And then that's how you can like really get support racing the World Cup and everything else. And yeah, it just kind of snowballs like that.
How much of that is on you to like go out and talk to people and like try to get like sponsors and maybe for gear or something like that? And how much of that is like, the team itself, if like, oh, if I make this team, professional team, like I'm gonna get all of this stuff.
Yeah, so the way it works in skiing is kind of like there are like names, people within the sport who are pretty big
Mhm.
and like have pretty good marketing value. And the way that it's set up right now is that those people are a part of a team the same way that somebody who's just getting out would be a part of a team. And then the team goes out and gets sponsors.
Okay.
And then, and to be honest, like most of the sponsorship appeal of that team is probably just because of the very biggest names who are a part of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
But then that could sort of help like bring up everybody and get everybody through that like early phase. So basically, like yeah, usually if you join a team, you're going to get like a
Mhm.
base level support. Like you're going to be able to go to the races and get a coach and get support, and maybe you get your plane tickets paid for, but like you're not going to earn money that you
Mhm.
can like save. So if you want to do that, then that's where the like personal sponsors come in, and that's where you go out and like, yeah, reach out to a local business and say like, I can do this, this, and this for you. I can help you run your Instagram. I can wear your logo or whatever,
Yeah.
and try and get some support that way. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's pretty sick. At what point, like, so in this, journey to the Olympics, at what point did you realize you're like, hey, like, it actually might be worth taking this chance to, really go for this? Was it obvious for you, or did it feel like more of a gamble and you're just betting on yourself?
Oh, there's been moments of like betting on myself a little bit, but the nice thing is that the way it's set up is like I was describing, there's never there's never really like a huge leap of faith. You know, you kind of just like
Mm.
shoot for the next thing throughout your whole career.
Yeah.
The biggest for me probably was like when I graduated college.
Mm.
And it's like I studied mechanical engineering, and all my friends were
Oh,
getting engineering jobs, and it was like all this stuff. Got to
yeah.
get in early, you got to have the internship, you got to have all this stuff, and it felt a little bit crazy for me to not do any of that. And I never had an internship in college or anything because trained so much in the summer.
Yeah.
I didn't really have time for that kind of thing. So that was a bit of a leap of faith, and like I didn't earn much money when I was like in college or
Mm.
shortly after. And sort of not going down the job rabbit hole and just saying like, all right, I'm gonna just like take my abilities and just like see what I can do.
Yeah.
That was a bit of a leap of faith, but I was confident too, like thankfully I had some like results to back up that decision,
Yeah.
and make me feel good about it. But yeah, that was probably the biggest one for me.
I mean, you did very well. I remember looking at the stats while I was watching. Like, you did very well in the junior circuit, from what I remember looking at.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think that is a thing that helps with those decisions. Like
Yeah.
I did do well as a junior, and I was a part of a good
Yeah.
group of guys who are my age,
Yeah.
who were all on the national team when we were juniors, and now we're all on the national team as seniors. And like
Mhm.
having that group is really crucial too, because you always have them, and you know that they're making the same sacrifices and making the same sort of like
Mhm.
decisions. So yeah, that helps make it super easy. And I'm obviously like really glad I did. But yeah,
Yeah, it worked out.
for sure.
So in skiing, it's sort of like it kind of looks like track and field in the sense of like there's distance events, there's obviously sprint events. They had the ski mountaineering this year. That was pretty fun to watch. When you're training for this, is there a big like culture of like specialization of like, a track sprinter who does the 100 meters, obviously not going to run the mile or that sort of thing. But it seemed like there were more skiers who did the whole, spectrum of events.
Yeah, for sure. I think that the interesting thing with how skiing is set up is that like there are sprints and distance events, but
Mhm.
unlike in track, the sprints aren't real sprints. Like a track
Okay.
sprinter would do like a 100-meter sprint, right? And like
Mhm.
they don't even do multiple like efforts in the day because they want to keep like the purity of sprinting, which is really cool. Don't get me wrong, and like
Yeah.
those guys are pure fast twitch,
Yeah.
but in skiing, even the sprint events, like the shortest event, like you still have to do like a still 3-minute effort, first of all, and you have to do that 3-minute effort like four times in order to actually win. So, you
Oh my
know,
goodness.
it's still like it still requires a decent amount of endurance. So like
Mhm.
I just say that like the difference, like obviously you have the 50K here, which is 2+ hours of skiing, and then
Yeah.
you have the sprint here, but the difference there is not that big. So we do have specialization, and you have people who race only the sprints and people who race only the distance races for sure.
Yeah.
But you also have people like it's possible to do everything. And
Mhm.
those that do everything are kind of the really, really good, really, really talented, really like,
Mhm.
yeah, physically kind of built different people, if that makes sense.
I think you're all kind of built different, to be honest. Like just the I can't even fathom. Like I've been cross country skiing before, just to like ski in a straight line. I remember when I did it for the first time because my background was hockey. And so when I got into skiing, people were like, "Oh, it's just like skating. It's nothing like skating whatsoever. Like it's completely different." And how exhausting it is. Like in hockey, we have 30-second shifts. That's what they tell us. And if you're skating all out for 30 seconds, at the very end, you're gassed, right? And you'll be like, "Oh, you've been out there for 45 seconds. He's tired. Let's go. Let's go attack that player." The idea of skating full out, full body, like it's not just your legs, it's everything for 3 minutes. Just, I got tired watching it on TV. It was incredible. And like, I remember how quickly after the end of a season, my cardio would just like 2 weeks, and I'm like, it's lost. I've lost all of it. Do you just have to like constantly not be able to take days off throughout the year, or are you able to like, kind of rest a little bit?
We pretty much train year round. We will take like most people at like the World Cup Olympic level will take like maybe a week or 2 weeks off in the springtime.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is pretty constant, and it's kind of like exactly what you're saying, where like cardio abilities like take a long time to develop, and you have to kind of like do go through the motions every single day for a really long time. Um, and yeah, that's kind of like that's the reality of a endurance sport.
Mhm.
But it's skiing has its benefits in terms of the training too. Like unlike hockey and running and cycling and so many of these other sports, like you just can't ski year round. So like
Yeah.
in the summertime, we all cross train, which is awesome because you don't
Mm.
get sick of one thing. So I in the summertime for training, I do a lot of running and I do a lot of mountain biking and road biking, and I roller
Oh,
ski, so like ski on the roads, which is kind of interesting.
yeah, I've seen those
So
like they got like blades on it and you can kind of still do the thing a little bit.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we do a lot of that, but the thing about it is, it's not a perfect representation. So like,
Yeah.
if you do too much roller skiing, you kind of develop bad habits as it pertains to snow skiing. So
Oh, okay.
we do a lot of roller skiing, no doubt about it, but like nobody does exclusively roller skiing. Everybody's running and biking and swimming and all this other stuff. So it's
Mhm.
really fun. Like the cross training doesn't feel like a chore because if you get sick of running, then you can just bike, and if you get sick of
Yeah.
biking, and then you can roller ski. And I don't know, it's pretty nice.
What is like the weightlifting and all of the other stuff like look like for you guys? Is it a big part of it, or is more of it just like do the thing that you're trying to get better at?
Yeah, and that's a good question. And that's kind of where the specialization comes in at my level, for instance. Like when I was a junior, everybody did some level of strength or
Mm,
weightlifting. And most of that was because to prevent injury more than anything.
mm.
It's important to like balance out your muscles and not just like do the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think at the level that I'm at now, you'll find that the sprinters, those who do the sprint races, do a lot more
Hmm.
strength training. So they might do like a pretty hard lift like 3 times a week, maybe.
Okay.
Whereas some of the distance guys, like somebody who specializes in a 50K, they may never do strength. They may never do weightlifting because it just like they don't really need like the rapid power development.
Mhm.
You can kind of
Right.
like it's kind of a slow burn.
Right.
The way you win a 50K is by being like a 0.5% faster for an hour, right?
Right.
Whereas the
Right.
way the way you win a sprint is by being like 2% faster for 2 minutes, right? If that makes
Right. I
sense.
got you. How much of it is like injury prevention? Because like outside of just falling down the side of the mountain, like what are like the big injuries you guys trying to worry about? Like overuse, I'm guessing.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, no, it's all overuse related. I mean, you can fall and hurt yourself cross skiing, but it's it's not
Yeah.
there's not a whole lot you're going to do to prevent the likelihood of that. That just happens. So yeah, it's all overuse. And like, I think that what happens is, for instance, if you ski and roller ski all the time, you
Right.
kind of like get hunched, and your
Mm,
your core and is going to be really strong, and your lower back is going to be really weak, and you're going to
mm,
end up with like hip issues and people have knee issues often from like running a lot, and I don't know, there's various other people get compartment syndrome sometimes, and things like that, which are like just sort of issues that are born from like repetition of the same movement over and over and over.
Right.
So yeah, and that's where like if I was a distance specialist, like if I was a 50K specialist and I went in the gym, all of the gym sessions would be just to like work on balancing out the like uh in you know yeah the
Yeah.
what's the word in
The imbalances.
imbalances
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you develop from doing the same thing over and over.
Absolutely. So with something like the sprint, like you said, like it's like you said, being 2% faster over 2 minutes, how much of that is like strategy going in of, I know these are the five guys I'm competing against in this. I think, these three of them maybe are not in my time zone. And as long as I just do my thing, I'm going to beat them. But, if I'm going to beat this guy or that guy, I kind of have to strategize, or is it just like balls to the wall? We're just going to go and hope for the best.
No, there's a good amount of strategy for sure. I mean, so the way the sprints work, which I'm sure you saw, but
Yeah.
everybody listening may not know, is you do a qualifier, which is just like a solo time trial,
Mhm.
and that's where you go as hard as you possibly can the entire time because
Okay.
you got to be in the top 30 of all the athletes in order to advance to the next round. So and it's a 3 minute, 3.5 minute effort, and the top 30 might be spread out by 4 seconds. So it's like
Okay.
there's not a whole lot of room for like error or going easier. So in the qualifier, you go as hard as you can, and then you have the quarterfinal, semifinal, and the final, and each
Mhm.
of those are you and six other guys, two of which automatically advance within that group. So that's where you got to deploy the strategy because there are nobody is enough like fitter than the rest of the field to
Right.
go as hard as they can in the quarterfinal, as hard as they can in the semifinal, and still have a chance at being on the podium in the final. So
Gotcha.
everybody has to sort of like be strategic a little bit, and that's something it's been hard for me, because you don't want to like get kicked out in the quarterfinals and feel like you left anything out there,
Right.
but you also don't want to like win the quarterfinal, eat like by a shit ton, and then get to the semifinal and be tired, So I think that it's a tricky thing, and everybody has to sort of find their own balance within that. Like the pace is going to be high for the whole duration of all the heats,
Hmm.
but it might not be like at that 100% max effort,
Gotcha.
and you get to choose like where within the heat or within the race you're gonna like kick it up to the 100%. So for me at the Olympics, like there was this hill that was right at the end of the sprint course, and I tend to be better than a lot of other people at the sort of like uphill classic technique.
Right.
So I was like, all right, I'm gonna try and be relaxed, try and save energy compared with everybody else, and just sit in the pack until
Hmm.
that last hill. And then the last hill is when I'm gonna go as hard as I possibly can and try and get in front. And then I'm gonna try and hold that front in front to finish. And then that worked out for me on that day. But it's kind of like the fun of racing is every day you sort of reevaluate
Yeah.
that plan.
Yeah. I was one of the things I was going to ask you is this is not your first Olympics, right? This is your
No.
second Olympics. Was this
Mhm.
something like, was that strategy change sort of the biggest difference between the first Olympics and this one for you?
Big time. Yeah, exactly. That was the biggest change. And I think that like the more you race at
Mhm.
the sort of like top level, the more you can obtain the confidence to like save energy early in hopes of like being able to
Mhm.
capitalize late. So at my last Olympics 4 years ago, I definitely like, yeah, hit the quarterfinal and I was like, I'm going to do everything in my power just to get to the semifinal. And then I got to the semifinal and I was like, I didn't have the energy to get to the final.
Yeah.
But for that, at that moment, at that point in my career, like being in the semifinal was a great accomplishment. And
Yeah.
obviously, like looking back on it, maybe I could have done something differently or whatever, but it was
Mhm.
like, yeah, that was where my goals were. And yeah, and then the last 4 years, I've like really developed the capacity, first of all, like the fitness to like go all the way
Yeah.
and be competitive in the final. And then also the sort of like mental fortitude to like be
Mhm.
relaxed and save energy. And yeah, you know.
So I mean, you go into first Olympics though, I'd imagine like you're still at a very elite fitness level. And, you know, I think I think this is kind of a thing right now in like the health like biohacker space of like you can take this, you can take that to make a 1% difference. And for like the average person, 1% doesn't really mean much of anything. But for someone like you, that's everything. That's, you know, like you said, the difference between the quarterfinal and, you know, the silver medal. So how did you go about getting that little extra difference when you were already, you know, in fantastic shape?
Yeah, good question. Good question for sure. And I think that like the way I like to approach these things as an athlete is to just sort of like I don't know, to just sort of like rely on the power of like the long game a little bit, if that makes sense. Like I
Mm,
like to just sort of like chip away at these things and just kind of try and see progress
mm,
outside of like exactly results, you know? And I think
mm,
that like I don't know, it's not the most satisfying answer ever. But I
mm,
find that like the way I've gotten better is just by like yeah, sticking to sort of like the things that I know work and then like trying to improve upon my weaknesses in the summertime, you know. So I think that every year, you know, you finish this season, you can look back on all the races and you can sort of
mm,
say like, all right, here are the places where I feel like I'm really good and here are the places where I feel like I need to get better. And then the
mm,
places where you feel like you need to get better are the things that's what you work on over the summer. In addition to just sort of like going through the motions and getting
mm,
out there for every day and you know doing your L1 and everything else. I think that like for me after the Olympics experience 4 years ago, it was pretty obvious that like just fitness, like I needed that 1%, exactly like what you were saying.
mm,
And I think that I knew from like talking with other athletes and from my own experiences, even
mm,
just getting up into that point, is that like fitness comes from just like, you know, doing the same thing and just like gradually increasing the amount of training that you do and the amount of intensity that you do and everything else. And I think that
mm,
that was kind of a nice thing because it just felt like, okay, you know, if I just have another 4 solid years of training, you know,
mm,
and like listen to my body and don't push too hard, but push myself just enough to like be moving that needle just a little bit every year, that's going to be how I get better at this, you know? Like I didn't feel
yeah.
like there was a huge issue in terms of like technique or in terms of, you know, like ability to generate power. Like that's something that I've always been really good at. Like I've always been very fast twitch, which is cool because that's a hard thing to get better at. You know, that's kind of
Yeah.
like a genetic thing, really.
Yeah.
Whereas like fitness can be improved. So yeah, that was kind of where my head was at after the Olympics 4 years ago. And yeah, I felt like I just had like 4 solid years of training
Mm.
and now I saw some results, which is like immensely satisfying.
I mean, I think that's the beauty of the Olympics is knowing you guys committed. Like people talk about like you committed 4 years, like it's really you committed your whole life. But
Yeah.
specifically, you know, this 4 year period and this idea that, especially I think with how the world is now with, you know, social media and everything, like everything's just like this. So the idea that you could commit to something that you're not going to see results for necessarily, like it's not even guaranteed, you know? Um, and commit to that for 4 years. I think that's what's like that's part of what's so incredible about it. And you know, I don't know if people realize this, but you know, the obviously the hockey team's getting all this hype because they won the first medal in 46 years. You won the first medal in 50 years. The gap is
Yeah.
even bigger for you. And I believe now I believe I heard them say this, you're the most decorated cross country skier in US history, right?
Yeah. Yes,
Like
indeed.
that's
Crazy.
incredible. Like, what does that like even feel like to you?
It's crazy. I mean, it's crazy to imagine. It's absurd. And like the 50-year statistic was one I was really familiar with and really
Mm,
like acutely because the guy who won a silver medal 50 years ago,
yeah.
I actually knew. And
Oh, really?
he like when I talk about like these pockets of ski culture, like he's the reason why Vermont has such a robust cross country skiing culture. Because he
Okay.
grew up in southern Vermont near where I grew up, and yeah. So anyhow, I've known him my whole life, and I've always like dreamed of being the one who you know broke that drought. But yeah, I mean it's crazy to imagine, and then to yeah to get another one too at the same Olympics just like astonishing and really immensely satisfying after like
Yeah.
it feels like 4 years because there's sort of this like cycle, but it's really it's a lifetime of
Mm.
I sometimes think about I don't like resent the amount of time and effort I've spent there. I love everything I do, and I love the training and I love the racing and I love everything about it. But there's this funny thing I think about sometimes where like every decision that I've made, probably since
Mm.
I was like, you know, 15 years old or younger even,
Mm.
has been like through the lens of skiing. Like everything I've
Yeah.
ever done, it right from like every morning when I wake up, it's like, all right, what do I want to do today? It's like, well, first thing that goes through my mind is like, what am I going to do for training? And then it's like, all right,
Yeah.
I'm going to do that for training. And then after that, okay, then I can maybe go hang out with a friend or go do this or go do that. And like, what college do I want to go to? Okay, well, which has the best ski team? And like, not, I don't resent that at all, but it is sort of crazy to think that like, yeah, that's my whole life,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, a lot of that kind of, yeah, was on display this weekend, which was fucking cool, man. Like, it was so
Dude,
awesome.
it is so cool, man. Like the guy's name, by the way, for everybody is Bill Cock. That was the previous Olympic medalist. Have you had like a chance to like talk to him? Like, was he involved in the Olympics, like giving you advice, or is he like more hands off? Like, what has that role been?
Yeah, he's very hands off. He really just like is a supporter from afar. But I got to talk with him after my first medal, which was
Mhm.
really spectacular. He's a very quiet guy and very reserved.
Gotcha.
But on the phone, I've never heard him so excited, which was really cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was the best. And he was telling me about like just how awesome it was to like watch the race and to just like think about,
Yeah.
he's a big supporter of the pro team that I'm on in Vermont.
Gotcha.
He's like on the board and helps to make logistical decisions. And,
Mhm.
I think he just like felt that it was, you know, a lifetime of his work, not his work. He wasn't taking credit, it was just like a lifetime of work by so many
Yeah.
that was like on display that day. And I
Right.
think he just was like immensely satisfied and excited. And then he told me he was just going to go out for a ski and think about it. And I was just like, damn, that's cool.
That's so sick. I gotta, yeah,
Yeah.
that's his legacy, right? He wins the medal and then he gets
Yeah.
involved back in Vermont. And I'm sure, of all the kids who came through, he was like, I hope one of them can do it,
Yeah,
and you were
for
the guy.
sure. Yeah, it's spectacular. And I think about like when he start helped to found this pro team that I'm a part of, their part of their mission statement was like to bring an Olympic medal back to Vermont,
Yeah.
and that had been accomplished on the women's side.
Yeah.
Our team was lucky enough to have gotten a medal in 2018 in Pyeongchang. And then it was kind of like, all right, like goal accomplished, like that's sweet. And then it was like directed to be like, okay, well, we got to get one
Yeah.
on the men's side. And yeah, I mean, in 2018, I was still even pretty young and had could only dream of being that person. And yeah, it's just
Yeah.
unbelievable that
You also got a medal in the sprint with Schumacher, correct? Yeah,
yes, in the
and
team
my
sprint.
my understanding is you guys have known each other for a very long time and been friends for a while. What was that like, and how do you go about putting a team together for sprint? And was it just you two have the two fastest times, you guys are together, or is there like a strategy of, you two mesh well for this event?
Yeah, it's a bit more complicated than just the two fastest guys. I mean, the team sprint is a really like hectic, crazy event that
Mhm.
is honestly a really hard thing to practice for. The only real way you can practice it is just by doing them. And Gus and I have done a lot of team sprints together over the years, and we've had I mean, a lot of like mishaps. I mean, we've had a lot of broken poles, a lot of crashes, a lot of poor strategy, and just like, yeah, underperforming in general. And I think that like we finally just in this season previous to the Olympics finally started to feel a little
Mhm.
bit of confidence with regards to the team sprint. So that was kind of how we made the team. It was a little bit tricky because, we had the individual sprint, which went well for me and really didn't go super well for Gus.
Mhm.
But it was one of those things where like cross country skiing has so many variables and, it could have been so many things.
Right.
But yeah, I think that like there was sort of this like, oh, are we going to go with the with who we thought it was going to be on the team, or are we going to change it up? And I'm really glad that we just like stuck with what we knew worked because it was funny. The team sprint, it was a really hard, big effort as it always is, but it also was like tactically very challenging. And like it
Mm,
was, everybody gunning for the medals, nobody at
right.
the Olympics, nobody cares about anything other than the medals. So it's like you have 15 guys in this giant pack skating with poles and skis going everywhere, and every single one of them wants to be in the top three above all else,
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah, it's really easy to like make a small mistake or pull off the gas for a second, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm in 10th, and like I was really stoked because Gus and I both had the experience to like, stay dialed in, stay focused the entire time, and like keep that from happening.
Yeah.
So we were able to just like stay at the front for most of the race. We had our fair share of mishaps, but like minor ones, and then
Mm,
and then Gus just skied a phenomenal last leg, and yeah,
yeah.
got it done, which was just freaking cool.
It's an insane event to watch because it's sort of like when the runners are running in track where I'm like, how do you not run into each other? And then sure enough,
Yeah,
like everyone's crossing the finish line and like I don't if
yeah,
people watch it back, like everyone's celebrating, but people are still coming in and like almost wiping people out. It's
yeah.
just chaos.
Oh, it's
It's
such chaos.
oh, it looks so much fun though. Is that the most fun event you think to do?
I think so, yeah. I mean, for me, the reason I like the team sprint is that, you still have this like 3 rounds thing
Yeah.
as you do in the individual sprint, but in the individual sprint, the 3 rounds are separated by like, maybe 30 minutes. And so you have this like whole like time to sort of like grapple with your emotions, which is a hard aspect of the individual sprint where it's like you get done with the quarterfinal and
Mhm.
you're like, okay, that was hard. And I'm psyched that I made it through, but I got to lock in for the semifinal. And then it's just like you have to sort of stay focused for like a 2.5 hour period. And
Right.
the thing with the team sprint that's really fun is it's like once you get going, it's just like such laser focus the entire time. It's like
Yeah.
while you're going, you're focused on what you're doing, and while you're resting, you're kind of just like trying to take the 3 minutes, catch your breath, like take a sip of water, and then all of a sudden you get out in the tag zone and you go again, and it's just like such a whirlwind, and it's so fun because you have to count on your teammate, and you really have to count on your teammate and believe in them, and that was a cool thing for me and Gus too, because like you said, we had been racing together since we were really young, and
Mm.
he's from Alaska, I'm from Vermont, so like we came from like different parts of the world, different upbringings, but then we like kind of
Yeah.
came together at junior nationals when we were young, and we've been kind of like rivals ever since. And then to get to like be teammates now and just like get it done on the world stage was just
Yeah.
freaking awesome.
That's so cool, dude. That's so
Yeah,
cool. So when I first started coaching ice hockey, I remember going in thinking like this is all about technique and I was very nitpicky on, the littlest thing and I think like 10 years in now, I'm like pretty much convinced that this is like 80% mental, right? Like just seeing how many goalies the moment they believe that they're going to stop pucks just like hit them is crazy.
yeah.
And I'm wondering for you, like, how much of skiing at a certain point do you think is mental? Because, like you said, you have all this time to think about things. And I would imagine when you're doing distance events, like being just, it's you and your thoughts and probably saying like the same, like three things and finding that rhythm for 2 hours to yourself or whatever it is. Like, how much of this do you think is just a mental sport where you're like, if I'm in the right mindset, things just go my way?
I think I think it's hugely mental for sure. I think that honestly is a part of the sport that gets doesn't get enough attention for how
Mm,
important it is. And I think that like, yeah, I agree. When I go to like youth camps and kids camps and stuff now, I find myself talking probably like 80% about like mindset and 20% about like actual training and
yeah.
technique and everything else. And I think that that's for two reasons. One, because like I said, mindset and the mental side of sport is hugely important. And two, because I think for a lot of kids, the training and the technique and that work is really easy.
Mm,
Not easy, but I think it
mhm.
comes to kids easier, Like, and I can
It's the
imagine
fun
with hockey,
stuff.
yeah, it's the fun stuff. Like, you go to practice and you can go through the motions, and surely you have to be dialed in. You have to have a desire to get better, but kids have a desire to get better a huge amount of the time.
Yeah.
And I think that like obviously you're gonna have some who come to practice and just don't really care, but that's a little bit of a different problem. Like for me, I think it's really fun to like see the kids who are like really motivated to get better and really want
Mm,
to, be the best version of themselves that they can. And I find that those kids can like obtain the most from working on their mental
mm,
game because yeah, and this may differ from sport to sport, but Nordies, you really tend to have like these type A people who want to like control every little thing and they want to like, they want to do the training plan perfectly down to the minute and they want to work on technique for the exact right amount of time. And it's like, oh my God, you got to chill a little bit. And I think that like when it comes time to race, like people like that sometimes struggle because the race environment, you just can't control everything. Sometimes it
yeah.
rains, sometimes it snows,
Oof.
sometimes I don't know, sometimes it's soft, sometimes yeah, there's all
Yeah.
these things that you can't control and you can't allow yourself to sort of say like, oh, this one little thing went wrong. I'm gonna like
Mm,
let the whole race go.
yeah.
That's what you want to avoid. And I think that yeah, those skiers who are the best at sort of like not only like rolling with the punches, but also like capitalizing on those sort of imperfect scenarios are the ones who do the best the most often. Like
Yeah.
any of us can sort of like have a good day when the sort of chips fall in our favor, but
Mm,
it's the athletes who can sort of like capitalize on the tough days who are the ones who ultimately become the best. And I think that's a fun thing to talk about with young kids because
mm,
yeah, being like working on your mental game is hard. It's
mm,
you can't make a training plan to become a more mentally tough athlete. You can't like work on technique the way you can with
right.
everything else. But I think that like the way you do it is by sort of like sharing experiences and talking about like what
Mm,
motivates you or what
mm.
motivates me. Um, and I don't know. I think that's yeah. I don't know. It's a bit of a convoluted way of answering your question, but I think it's hugely important.
Yeah, no, I think you answered it. Like that's like you said, that's the thing. It's a tough thing to work on because, number one, like obviously there's a maturing process that needs to take place. And I think part of it is getting to know yourself, right? And you
mhm,
kind of just have to be very honest about who you are and what your strengths and you are, what your weaknesses are. And, being disciplined is not easy. I mean, if it were, everyone would do it,
totally.
right?
Yeah.
And like, I mean, are you like a big meditator? Are you into breath work? Like, what is your mental process at this point?
Yeah, good question. The biggest thing that I do with my sort of like mindset is, I mean, I talk to a sports psychologist
Mm,
often, and I find that like, you know, I have obviously the privilege of like working with a professional who works with a lot of athletes, but
yeah.
honestly, like when I talk to when I sort of like make recommendations to people, I would say that just like having somebody, it doesn't have to be a
Mm,
psychologist, like because when I talk with her, I often just like the biggest value is in the reflection.
yeah.
And obviously like now I've gotten pretty good at doing it myself, but when I first
Mm,
was kind of trying to become better mentally as it pertains to racing, it was really helpful to just like have a moment where I'd be like,
mm,
okay, we're gonna talk for 20 minutes after like this target race or after whatever, after this race.
mm,
And then she would ask me, okay, like how did like this moment feel? And what did this? And the reflection was huge. And now
mm,
it's like gotten ingrained in me where I sort of like when I'm lying in bed after a race, good or bad, and you're sort of thinking, and sometimes you
mm,
can kind of start to like fixate on things. I'll just sort of think about where my mindset went during that race. And that's a really powerful thing because you know, for instance, one thing I have been working on over the last couple of years is in the sprint days.
mm,
You set goals for yourself at the beginning of the season, right? And maybe your goal at the beginning of the season is going to be like, I want to make the final in so and so sprint or in a couple of sprints this year. And
mm,
what's funny is that like you can accomplish that goal over the course of a sprint day and still have more racing ahead of you, but you
mm,
don't. And I
yeah.
too many times in my career I've like made the semifinals and I'm like, okay, cool, now I'm going to be top 12 in this race and like that feels like a milestone and I sort of like pat myself on the back and I'm like, okay, you know if
Mm,
this day were to end right now, I would be satisfied. I
mm.
don't have to be like bummed, you know? And then after a while of doing that, I was just like, what a fucking waste.
No,
Sorry,
you can swear. It's
bad
fine.
language.
You're
I was
good.
like, what a waste, you know? Like, this was a great day. I had great skis. I was feeling good. I was, I was healthy. Like, and I sort of
Yeah.
allowed myself to be satisfied with like being 10th. And I
Yeah.
could have maybe been eighth or ninth or
Mm,
fifth or third, you know? And I think that's something that I've worked on with the sports psychologist a lot, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna like be happy with my progress. I'm gonna be happy with how the day is going, but I'm not gonna be satisfied until like the race is over, you know?
yeah.
And at the Olympics this year, like I felt like, okay, I made the final and I
Yeah.
was like, I'm going for that freaking podium, you know? And
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not gonna be satisfied with sixth.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna be satisfied, with just being here.
Yeah.
I'm going for that podium. And yeah, it was immensely satisfying. And it was just like reflecting on on it after the races is the way you prepare for it to happen again, is what I found at
Yeah.
least.
I mean, did that so that's actually interesting to see because you compete in a sport where there is a guy who, I mean, this past Olympic won like 6 or 7 gold medals, right?
Yeah,
And he's like the Michael Phelps of cross country skiing. Like when you go into that final race and like your goal is to not sell yourself short, are you going in and like, you know what? I can beat this guy. Like he's not this immortal Norwegian cross country skiing god. Like he's a human being who can be beat. And, obviously he got gold, but was that a big point of emphasis for you of just not being intimidated?
absolutely. Yeah. And that's where I think the sports psychologist comes in, is where like my instinct would be to sort of shoot for like, okay, I'm gonna like try and be second to Claybo, right?
Hmm.
Like he's very, very hard to beat. Like he's so good, it's unbelievable. But her point is like, who it doesn't matter. It doesn't
Right.
matter. Like you shoot you shoot to win, right? And if you
Mhm.
fall short of that, then you may be second, and that's awesome. And you may be third, you may be fourth, that's awesome. You may be sixth,
Mhm.
that's awesome, you know? But she's like, her thing is like, if you want to like yeah, if you want to be like mentally dialed in and set yourself up for those 1 in a million days, set yourself up to capitalize on those 1 in a million days, you got to shoot for the top, you know?
Yeah.
And that was a cool thing to hear. And it kind of like makes me really proud that like, sure, Johannes has beat me in probably 98.89% of the races that we've ever done together. And that'll probably hold true for forever, but it doesn't matter because I pull up to the start line and I'm ready to beat him on that day when he
Yeah.
has an off day, like, 'cause it's
Yeah.
coming.
Absolutely. Like that gets me so fired up. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that's so cool.
I don't know. I
And
mean, you got to get fired up one way or another, and like
yeah,
that's an easy way to do it.
I think that's what like is quintessentially like what's fun about watching American athletes, right? Is you
Hmm.
just get so invested in, you and your story and you go in and you I mean, me personally, like, all the media attention is on Kleibo and everyone's
Hmm.
talking about his journey and all that sort of thing. And there you are, and I'm watching the race and I'm like, listen, we're right with them. Like there's
Hmm.
not a huge gap right now, and we're right with them, and that gets me fired up of like that underdog story, and to know like, do you ever like have like feelings of like imposter syndrome sometimes of like you place high and you're like, oh well, I don't know if this is who I am, or are you like, this is what I'm capable of, and I just executed.
I used to, for sure.
Okay.
And again, that's another place where the sports psychologist has really helped, because she is good at like recognizing and hearing the sort of like ways that I talk about myself, like self-talk when it comes
Yeah.
to racing, and hearing and saying like, oh, you're selling yourself a little bit short here. But now not as much. I mean, definitely I like to think of myself as the underdog, and I think that there's
Mm,
no denying that like as American cross country skiers, we often are.
yeah.
But I think that's a little subtly different from like the imposter syndrome, you know.
Mm,
I don't know. It's not something that I struggle with too much these days, but a little bit, yeah, a little bit. There's like a line in
mm,
there where I feel like I take a lot of motivation from feeling like the underdog in races, but I start to get satisfied too soon if I
mm.
have this imposter syndrome thing going. So
Yeah.
there's a line in there where I find like mentally I thrive, and it's a little bit confusing to put into words exactly
Yeah.
where that is. But yeah, that's kind of been my relationship with it.
Yeah, I know. I think I understand what you're saying. It's not that you don't believe that you're good or that you
Yeah,
don't believe like you don't deserve to be the silver medalist. It's just like this idea of like, I did well. Like I got eighth at the Olympics. That means you're eighth in the world. Like it's not,
right,
it's not like you suck. It's you're eighth in the
right,
world and you go, that's pretty good. And sometimes selling yourself short of, like you said, like you could have been third. You could have been second. Maybe you could have
right,
even gotten the gold medal. And,
right,
maybe next time around you do get the gold medal. That
totally,
anything is possible and just not being satisfied with doing really well and,
right.
taking that big risk. I think that's, obviously very scary. I had plenty of athletes that I've worked with where like it's hard to explain to people sometimes, but they almost don't go full tilt because I think the what's scary about that is kind of two things, and I'd be interested to hear your take on this. Of some of them are scared to succeed. Like the idea of getting everything they want is scary to them because it's everything they've ever wanted and it's so much at one time. And then other kids are scared that if they try their hardest and they don't succeed, like dealing with that failure of knowing like there was nothing else they could have done and that this is the best they could have done and it's not what they wished for. I don't know if either of those ring more true to you or, you know.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's an interesting question, and I've felt definitely a lot of the latter, where it's
Mm,
like, yeah, you go, you give something your all, and it feels like really stressful because if you come up short, then you're just like, where do I go? I have no other cards to play.
right.
And I think that like for me, yeah, I've definitely I've been aware of that feeling.
Mm,
And I find that like the best thing for me with regards to that has been, because of course like the whole point of sport is to like learn to give something your all and not really care about, or try and not care. You have to care about the result, but
right.
try and be proud of the fact that you gave it your all, and
Mm,
you saw what you were capable of. And that's the whole point of doing a sport, but it's a little bit scary because you have to want that like that
mm,
success. And I found that like the best way for me to kind of like walk that line is by just kind of having other other passions, other projects in life, other things
mm.
in life that sort of like give me some validation as a person, outside of skiing. And I think that like that it doesn't sound like much and it sounds like sort of standard, but it's
Mm.
too easy as an athlete to just like really and truly make your sport the only thing that you have going on. Like CrossFit.
Yeah.
I know people who their entire year, their routine is like wake up, eat breakfast, train for 2, 3 hours, come home, eat lunch, nap, wake up, eat food, go train
Oh,
for 2 hours, and like
oh man.
that is all they do all year long. And then they come to the race season and they can't get it done, because they've been
Yeah.
thinking about it. They've been thinking about it. And it's like so hard for them to push themselves
Mhm.
and to really and truly lay it all out there because they're fearful that like, holy shit, this is like the only thing I've done all year long. And
Yeah.
if I can't do well, it's going to be like really hard. And I find that like for me, I've been sort of in that position before, and I felt the like challenges of like really giving it your all. And for me, like, I really do. I sacrifice some training quality in the summer to the point where like I don't take a midday nap because I want to go and work on other things. I'm an avid woodworker.
Oh, cool.
I have all these other projects. I've been restoring a car and like
Oh, that's
all
sick.
this stuff. Yeah, it's super cool. And it's like it's epic because like I can go out now and I can have a bad ski race tomorrow. I can be like, well, I got my Land Rover at home and my Land Rover is fucking cool. And like that makes me feel good. And people will say like, "Oh, why do you do all this other shit?" Because it's like makes your training less good and your rest isn't very good and you're probably going
Yeah.
to be tired and all this stuff. And I'm like, "Yeah, maybe, but but it makes me happy, and it makes
Yeah.
me happy irrelevant of results. And that's like a hugely important thing that you can't not have as an athlete, in my opinion,
Have you always been into woodworking and like working on cars, or is that something you just found like I need a hobby and
I've always been into woodworking. My father was built custom cabinetry.
Oh,
He did
okay.
like kitchen remodels.
Oh, that's
So
sick.
we have this awesome wood shop at the house, and he taught me when I was really young, and
Yeah.
that's always been a passion of mine. And then after I graduated college, when I was like, okay, now I'm going to be a professional skier. Like,
Yeah.
how am I gonna not just like think about skiing all the time? That was
Yeah.
when I bought the Land Rover and started the restoration, and it's been it's been more valuable than I can honestly ever say for my
Yeah.
skiing and just my life. It's been really fun, and it's been this like 3.5 year project where I'm not done. I'm close-ish.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of good stuff. I've learned a shit ton, and it's really cool. And when I'm done, it's going to be this awesome product. But
Yeah.
more importantly, it's like along the way, it's given me the opportunity to like come home from training in the summertime, and
Mhm.
maybe I do a intensity session and it doesn't go well. Maybe I do time trial and I get beat by a lot of people, and I
Mhm.
don't feel good, and that sucks. And I can either sit around and fixate on it for 6 hours
Yeah.
until the next session, or I can just go and like take a piece of the Land Rover and clean it and paint it and make it all pretty. And
Where are
that's
you at
just
with the
the
Land Rover right now?
I am. I'm kind of assembling final assembly. I've painted. It's all been repainted. I rebuilt the motor, rebuilt the transmission, rebuilt both uh the axles. And now I've put most of it together, but I have to like assemble the electronics and like the dashboard and
Yeah.
all the sort of like lights and everything like that. But I'm definitely like this summer I could conceivably finish it, I think.
What do you think the first thing you're gonna do with it is once you got it done? Do you have a plan for
Man,
that?
that's a good question. I think about like I'm not sure what the first thing I'm gonna do is. Probably just like drive it around the neighborhood. But I do like when I'm here in Europe and I can't sleep. I my go-to is to like think about my first road trip, and I'm
Ooh.
pretty psyched because I want to like go full soul searching mode. Like leave my phone and like get a map, like a paper
Yeah.
map, and like write out my route and like go alone,
Yeah.
and just take me and this like car that I built, and maybe I think I'll try and like visit people along the way, like just do a little New England road trip, and
Yeah.
yeah, just kind of like you know I don't know, just kind of take some time and think
Yeah.
about life a little bit. I'm pretty excited about it. It's gonna be
That's
really
pretty
cool.
sick. I mean, Vermont's a great place too because you guys have the scenic route. I remember, like,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
like that. I remember, I had to work like a hockey camp many years ago one time, and I had to, for whatever reason, commute across Vermont. I'm from Maine,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
so
nice.
yeah, and so it was the camp was in like upstate New York, and I was staying in New Hampshire somewhere.
Hmm.
And I would commute across, and that's one of the most beautiful drives in all of America. And it's I can't imagine like just your car, you got the map, no electronics, just tuned out from the world. Just, oh, that's gonna be an unreal feeling.
Yeah, I'm super fired up. No, and you're exactly right. Like that's the beauty of Vermont is that you don't have to be on like a big highway to get places. You can be on these like little winding roads, and
Yeah,
yeah, and you see all this stuff when you're on. You see these like beautiful barns and these cool little miniature farms, and
yeah,
yeah, I'm super fired up. I mean, I think that like especially like I love living in like the technological age. Don't get me wrong. Like it
right.
makes my job as an athlete a lot easier, honestly, like having Instagram and everything else. But boy, it is nice to get away from it.
Mm,
And you kind of, I find that you kind of just have to like force yourself and just kind of like be like, okay, I'm gonna just leave my phone. Like for training,
yeah,
I've the last couple of years I've been like, I just don't train. I don't bring my phone when I train unless I have to for like,
yeah,
navigational purposes, and that's been something that like it's it feels so lame to have to get to the point where you're like make a blanket like no phone at training.
yeah,
But it's like, man, it's hard to draw the line, and
yeah,
I don't know. I feel like it's but the flip side of it is that like with all the technology and all the electronics, I find that it's unlike other addictions, or so I've heard. You can kind of like be done for a day or two, and you don't really miss it. You're kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
it's just like
Yeah, I
I
saw
don't
a
know. That's
study
been my
recently
experience at
that
least.
just said like, if you're off it for a week, like most of the your body recovers like from whatever the
Exactly.
negative side effects are. And
Exactly.
you think about all of the health benefits of just being in nature, right? And
Yeah.
you can get as, biohacky or woo-woo with it as you want, but there's just something to being in the sun, in nature, smelling the roses and all that stuff that's just so like, I imagine for you as you're skiing, like you do so many ski sessions where it's about hitting time markers and recovery markers
Yes.
and intervals and like what percent of your VO2 max output are you on? And it just gets so technical that you never get to
Yeah,
just go and ski anymore and just to
for
get out there
sure.
and just have fun.
Exactly. Yeah. And like so much, even on the days where it is like we're just going and skiing, you're still like fixated on how your body's feeling and you're fixated on all this stuff, which
Yeah.
is fine. And it's how you get better and it's whatever. But yeah, I'm looking forward to an excuse to like having an excuse to just sort of like go and experience life and not do any of that.
That's
So
gonna be
anyhow,
so cool.
that's my
That's gonna
pipe
be so
dream
sick.
when the Land Rover is all done. Check back in a few years and maybe I'll have done it. I'll be a
That
changed man.
absolutely. One of the things I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you, and I think we can probably end on this, is, the growth of sports, in the country. I Sports like hockey and stuff like they're gonna get a boost, I'm sure, but like they don't need it. Like lots of kids obviously
Mm.
play hockey. It's a very big sport. But sports like cross country, like you said, it's this pocketed thing. How do you think it what needs to be done in the country? Is it just more people donating? Is it, supporting the NGB? Like what needs to be done to grow this, not just as like, oh, we need to train like elite Olympic skiers so we can finally beat Norway at the Winter Olympics. Just like how do we get more people interested in cross country skiing and knowing like, hey, this is an option. Like it's not just downhill skiing.
Yeah, yeah. I think that like it's a good question, and I think that first of all, the way that we beat Norway and the way that we become a powerhouse is by getting more kids into it. I mean, the reason Norway is so good is because every single kid in elementary school cross country skis, and those that like it keep going with it. And I think that like that's where we're lacking. And I think that, for me the like biggest goal from like going forward for me is to just kind of like make people realize that like it doesn't have it's not about like being perfect, it's not about like having a really high well-funded nice equipment. It's just about getting out there, especially at a young level. Like I really like I'm really interested in the younger like
Hmm.
elementary school level because I think that's where like engagement is just so key. And I think that the way that we grow the elementary school level of cross country skiing is just by like going to more schools, setting up more programs where like kids can get equipment and get like
Hmm.
there are like schools can apply for grants and stuff. And Vermont does this pretty well where like, I think almost every school has some sort of like after school cross country ski program. And of course, you have to have snow. So like it's not going to be too great in Florida. But I think even like yeah, Minneapolis does it really well.
Yeah.
Alaska does it really well, but like I think there are places in the West, like in the Rockies, where it's just so alpine heavy. And I think that the beauty of cross country skiing is that it can be sort of this simple thing, like it's just
Yeah.
you take a busload of kids to like a field where somebody groomed a little bit and
Mhm.
have a bunch of skis there, and it's like everybody can ski. You don't have to worry about lift tickets. You don't have to worry about any of this helmets. You don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. So I think that like I don't know, trying to like help support programs that are like their mission is just to get kids on skis is the place where we are going
Yeah.
to see the biggest change. And yeah, I'm really excited to sort of see what I can do with this sort of like platform that I've
Yeah.
started to develop with regards to just like yeah, getting kids on skis because that's where I think we move the needle, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, I got to live in Sweden for a little bit when I was
Oh,
younger, and
cool.
I was way up north in Umeå, which
Nice.
is kind of hillbilly bumpkin parts of Sweden. And
Yeah.
obviously cross country skiing is huge there as well.
Hmm.
And one of the things I noticed is like similar to like how some communities here, kids bike ride to school,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
they have like these whole things. Like some kids would just cross country ski, and that was like just their way to get to school because like, we have
Totally.
all this snow and why not? It's an easy way to get there, and so many people do it, like you said, and just the equipment
Hmm.
accessibility of if I wanted to get snow skis, I could get them real cheap. It would
Yeah.
not be this big. And I'm not to say like, there are obviously way more expensive sports than cross country skiing. Like I would say
Yeah, but
alpine skiing is
it's
more expensive. You have to pay for the passes and all that sort of thing
yeah.
where you can, if you just buy the skis, find somewhere snow, you can go and just
Yeah,
have a great time. Find a golf course. A lot of them will
totally.
obviously,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. But yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing too that I will say that I think is a goal going forward too is like what you see here in Europe and especially in Scandinavia is that like they have these trail systems that are kind of like they sort of know no boundaries, it's not like here where or even where I grew up in Vermont, it's like, you would go to like a touring center and they would have like 100 acres of land and within that they do these like trails and stuff. And that
Mm.
was great and fun. But here in Europe, like I can be at a hotel and I can jump on my cross country skis and I can ski to a cafe, you know?
Oh.
And then I can get a coffee and get a friggin', croissant at the cafe and ski back. And I'm like, that's 100 times better. That
Yeah.
is so much fun, than like having to go to the touring center and like, oh, you do this loop and then you're back at your car. And then you're like, all right,
Yeah.
well, I'm gonna go do this loop. And it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fun. It gets people fired up. But like I think that getting towns on board with the concept of like,
Mm.
oh, we're gonna like instead of like a bike path, we're gonna like groom a ski trail through town, and people are gonna
Yeah.
ski to this restaurant. And I think that is where, yeah, you could get a ton of people fired up about skiing because it just like further ingrains it in the culture. It's not like this thing that you go out of your way to do and you pay for a pass. You just sort of like, yeah, you just sort of do it the same way you might go on the bike path. And I think
Yeah.
yeah, that's a cool goal for a lot of these towns that are capable of it,
Right.
because it can be a huge attraction, like what we see in Europe for sure.
Yeah. Do you see like I know for hockey, obviously we had the same problem of, there's not tons of rinks down in Miami. So,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
I think that's where like roller hockey became a big thing of you can get kids kind of into the idea of the sport.
Hmm.
And, I obviously you said like the roller skiing is not exactly the same. But do you think
Yeah.
there's any benefit to like trying to get that to be bigger in places where there's not necessarily access to snow?
I don't know. It's a bit tough. Like the roller skiing is fun and it has its sort of benefits, but it's not like roller hockey. Like roller hockey and hockey are different, but like you still get this like awesome competitive outlet. You're still on a team. You still have so many of the like fundamentals of hockey that make it so
Right.
special. Whereas roller skiing, like to me, the fundamentals of cross country skiing that make it so special are sort of like being in the woods, being alone, being sort of like quiet, natural beauty of the like world that we live
Mm,
in a little bit,
mm,
and like maybe kids don't appreciate that very much, but like as far as growing the sport, like I think that yeah, if you're even just alpine skiing versus cross country skiing, like if you go alpine skiing, you're kind of in this like world where there's moving, there's machinery and there's like all these other people and there's like a lot of stuff going on. And you go cross country skiing, you can kind of just get like lost in the woods a little bit. It's like really
yeah.
peaceful and mellow. And you don't get that roller skiing. Like
Yeah.
best case scenario, you're roller skiing like on the side of a quiet road. But
Yeah.
like you still have cars going by and it's still kind of dangerous. And like, I don't know. It just like to me, it wouldn't your best hope of getting someone into cross country skiing is by bringing them cross country skiing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
no attempt at manufacturing that is gonna be that successful. But I don't know. Maybe I'm a little cynical. I've done too much roller skiing, but
Well, what's next for you? Like, what's the next competition for you now that the Olympics is done?
yeah, we have a few more World Cups before the
Mm.
season's over. So there's a couple. I'm in Scandinavia. I'm actually in Sweden right now, of all things.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, in Falun, and
Oh, okay. Yeah.
there's some races here, and then there's some races in Finland and Norway, and then all at the end of the season, the World Cup finals are actually in Lake Placid, New York, which is
Oh, whoa.
super unusual. Yeah, it's like we never race World Cups in the U.S., so that is going to be super sick, and that's the big target for all of us now. So that's
Wow.
in like March 20s, March 21st ish time.
Is that
So,
broadcast on TV? Is that something people can
oh
watch
yeah.
and like,
Yeah, you can watch, you'll be able to watch it on Peacock, I think, like
oh,
NBC.
word. Okay.
I don't know. It's funny. Like, yeah, most of the time ski racing is on Peacock kind of because it happens in the middle of the night in the US. But yeah, actually it's a good question. I wonder if it'll be like on local channels because it will actually be like during the day.
Yeah, that's
I
sick.
actually don't know, but I'm sure it will be on NBC something. Yeah, but no, it's gonna be super cool. We're all really fired up.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking time out of the busy schedule to chat. This has been super fun to get to talk to you. Like I said, watching you win the race, just it's electric. And everyone should go back and watch it if they haven't got the chance to watch it yet. It's so fun. And it's one of the most astounding events to watch. I'm talking to next week, Emery Lehman's coming on, who's a speed skater. I would say between those two, I love watching sports that I could never do and watch people do things that I could never do. And that sport to me is the one these two, I could never do it. I know how hard, like just going down a hill and turning is very difficult on cross country
It
skis.
is.
It's if
Yeah.
people think it's going to be like regular alpine skiing, it's really hard. Just to do that is difficult. And I don't think people fully appreciate like to sprint uphill. Like you guys just make it look easy and they're like, "Oh, it's like running." It's nothing like running. It is so
It's
difficult.
not that much like running.
It's so difficult to do and there's technique and like you said there's power and just to watch you do it and then watch you win for the country was just unbelievable and such a great moment. And I'm so fired up about it still, obviously. So I thank you so much
Yeah,
for
well.
coming on. Let people know where they can find you and watch you and all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having me and for thinking of me. It's I really appreciate it, and it's an awesome opportunity to get to speak with some maybe not routine cross country ski fans. So I appreciate that, and yeah, all the nice words. It's really I'm lucky to get to do what I do, and it's a lot of fun. But yeah, my name is Ben Ogden. I'm on Instagram. I'm on YouTube actually. I have a little
Oh, okay.
YouTube channel that I post on every once in a while. So yeah,
I'll
you should
link
be able
that
to
in
look
the
me up
bio
on
for people.
Sweet. That'd be awesome. Yeah. But yeah, Instagram and yeah, I post about like where to watch the races each weekend for the most part when I remember. So hopefully, yeah, people could tune in and watch and I'll definitely be posting about how to watch Lake Placid. That'll be a fun one, I think, for any fans of American sports. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you all so much. Thank you so much for the support and for having me. It's been really fun to chat.